What is the fastest way you've seen someone mess up their life? Married the wrong woman. I have a friend, at one point my best friend, who has incredible dependence issues. He ended up divorcing his first wife and living with me for a while so he could get back on his feet. Once he sorted his stuff out, he ended up hooking up with his high school girlfriend, who at this point was an unemployed alcoholic on welfare with 2 kids from 2 different baby daddies. On the day of his wedding, her parents told him he was making a mistake. So did his parents. Also his sister. All of his friends. too. She immediately landed him in a whack of debt, shock, and shortly afterward alienated basically all of his friends. Then started in on the emotional abuse. I've seen him in tears because of her a number of times over the years. Fast forward a handful of years, and it has cost him his health, his job, and any hope of ever having a life not on social assistance. He went from a clean freak who had a well-paying job to a one-legged diabetic on disability who I only visit twice a year, because his house smells of trash and dog piss, and it makes my skin crawl to be there for any length of time. I know a woman who married the wrong man. Even 5 years after her divorce, she still worries that he's going to kill her and the kids. I have a good friend who has been in some toxic relationships, and in his last one he was truly emotionally abused. Today he is married to a girl that while does not directly abuse him, she is very very high maintenance. We're talking eating disorders, anxieties, laziness, really a handful. Obviously, it is expected from every one of us to be tolerant and whatnot, but holy crap, his life is a mess. I mean, he is constantly on his feet, doing basically everything in their home, and being the main provider. She is now pregnant, which raises conflicting feelings for me and his other friends, because he confided in us a few months ago how he is dreading having a baby with her because he is exhausted and he has no clue how he is supposed to take care of another human. The issue is, she loves him very much, so while his life is basically a nightmare, he doesn't raise with concerns about the relationship itself, something he did do with his prior abusive relationships. So we, as friends, who want to help just feel like there's nothing we can do, except watch him fade from the side, crossing fingers he raises any flag, so we can give some agency to take action. The fade into nothing is a painful thing to watch. I've seen female friends so exactly the same. And they end up just really messed up, like they are the problem, not their husband. Meth/drugs. I saw someone with a house, car, bikes, wife, full-time job lose it all in the space of a year. Now they live alone, no possessions, kids, wife gone, pretty much nothing left but a drug-addicted person. It's so sad. Someone I know took out a second mortgage on his house and invested everything in crypto. Now it's worth only half and they're struggling to pay for their house. I was involved with crypto for a while, and the amount of people I had to scream, "Never invest more than you can afford to lose," at is astounding. Would literally have people joining telegrams for projects I was following asking when they should put their entire life savings into the project so they could make the most money. I worked in an office and one day, this coworker just punched another coworker in the face. Hard. I was in the room with them when it happened. There was no provocation. The guy that got punched was just telling him a different way he should do something. The guy who got punched was well liked and the other guy was a jerk, as you might guess. Puncher was walked out of the office. My ex-wife had it all. She was a nurse, respected by her colleagues, loved by patients, had a husband, me, who would go and bring her the moon, 4 kids who adored her, and a beautiful home. Then she got mixed up with an old high school boyfriend of hers who got her hooked onto meth. Long story short, she's now in prison for the next 10 years and I'm a single dad of 4 kids who miss her terribly and cry for her at times. Unbelievably, she hates me and says I'm the real bad guy for a multitude of reasons. Gambling. It can destroy your family very quickly. You can never really beat the addiction. Guy the first knew had a couple too many beers at lunch. Had an accident on the highway. His big truck absolutely destroyed the other car, killed 2 teenage girls. Got 40 years in prison. Watched my now ex-girlfriend develop a drug addiction. Within 2 months she lost her job, depleted her savings, traded her car for drugs, and would disappear for days on end. Eventually, police started showing up at my house looking for her. She was eventually arrested for theft and other crimes. Crazy to see someone spiral so fast in front of your eyes and you are powerless to stop it. My best friend in high school was a beautiful cheerleader who got straight A's. After high school, she started college and went for 2 years, racking up about $100,000 in loans, before dropping out, becoming a stripper, getting hardcore addicted to drugs, getting pregnant by a loser who ended up sustaining brain damage in a car accident not long after. Last I knew, she was a single mom, living in her parents' house, working at a convenience store and dating more D-bags. Extremely sad to see. There's a lot of pressure on high achievers to keep achieving. Often what would be a small slip can lead to a big mental health spiral. Killed someone in a fight with their friend by sneaking up behind them and punching them in the head. On CCTV, guy that died didn't even do anything. My cousin sold a car to his friend and his friend paid him half of the money and left. My cousin called the police to report but didn't think they would get him on his warrant. Yes, my cousin is an idiot and is still in jail. I've seen cocaine kill about 15 friends. Even more if I just count people who've died that I kinda knew. High school acquaintances and stuff. Not just overdoses either. Suicides from having ruined their lives. Losing houses or marriage, etc. Then there's the fentanyl. That stuff is trouble, I tell ya. I'm currently watching a buddy of mine mess up his life, and there's not much I can to prevent it. Last year, he started drinking and doing more drugs, weed, coke, speed, mostly to deal with stress at work and at home. 3 kids plus a wife, all somewhat on the spectrum. He ended up almost killing himself in a traffic accident. Face planted into a curb with his e-scooter while high, resulting in a skull fracture and having to have part of his face reconstructed. As soon as he recovered from that, his wife threw him out of the house. I don't know the backstory there, if he had hit her or threatened her. All I know is that he started drinking a lot more. He ended up committing himself into a psychology hospital for a month, coming out clean. Unfortunately, that didn't last. He's now in a nasty rose war with his soon-to-be ex-wife. She won't allow him to see his kids, all between 3 and 9 years old, and he was just fired from his job as well. He's basically homeless, living with a woman who he met recently. She actually seems like a really nice woman. This whole mess has happened in the span of about 9 months. He's a nice guy, but his life is a pile of burning crap at the moment. Watching Howard Dean scream on television. Man went from a beloved presidential candidate to a bad meme in 1 second because of the infamous Dean scream. One of my childhood friends got into doing meth. She got busted by the cops and spent 5 years in jail on a 1-year charge because she kept getting into fights and busted with drugs. They let her out because she somehow became pregnant in jail. Shortly after giving birth, she got busted with drugs again and spent another 7 years in jail on a 2-year charge. Last time I heard anything about her, she was doing rehab for like the 20th time, so who knows? I've read that meth addiction is one of the hardest to break because it specifically damages the part of the brain that regulates impulse control. It was sad. She was a beautiful girl who had good grades and was in nursing school. I don't know what happened, but when I got out of the army and returned home, I saw her and was shocked at what I saw. She looked horrible. Her skin looked pale and waxy. Her previously curvy figure was reduced to skin and bones. This change was in under 3 years. Eating disorders. Not that we are at fault for them, but with certain people, once you develop it, it stays with you and you can't see things the way you once did. They are the most deadly mental disorder. I've heard of people who are anorexic dying either from starving or a health complication caused by the eating disorder. Having bulimia can really screw up your teeth. I knew a 24-year-old girl who died because of her eating disorder. Her heart finally gave out. Married fresh out of high school, pregnant, divorced, pregnant again with a different dude's kid. I've seen this happen twice to people I knew personally in high school already. Yes, they were both military people. Guy the first worked within the Navy. Dude was loved by the nursing officer, was on the fast track to make HM2 in record time, especially when I was in, and then decided he was going to steal narcotics from patients and the pharmacy on the ship. I think he spent 6 to 12 months in prison before his BCD. I saw an episode of Intervention the other day starring a girl I sat next to in grade 9. I moved schools so I hadn't seen or heard from her since we were 14. Pretty shocking when I saw her face pop up. Turns out she excelled through high school and university, landed a great job in her field, started partying more to celebrate the success, got involved with a guy into drugs, eventually tried crack, is now a homeless addict. She was like late 20s when she started. Finished rehab on the show and went right back to using. No idea if she's clean or not now. I tried to find her on Facebook but couldn't. Sad stuff though, the show made it sound like it happened really quickly. A good friend of mine was married to a beautiful girl that he had known since high school. Her parents were wealthy and bought them a house. Paid for all of their utilities and auto insurance. The dude had a great life and his future would have been secure. His wife would have inherited a crap ton of money and commercial property. One night this idiot goes to a club with his friends. He meets a girl, he has a one-night stand and she gets pregnant. His wife finds out, a divorce happens and he ends up walking out of the marriage without a penny. His father-in-law had placed a non-active mortgage on the house when he gave it to them that would automatically get activated in the case of a divorce. He actually ended up having to pay for half of the credit card debt that he and his now ex-wife accumulated during the marriage. He now struggles and lives in a small one-bedroom apartment with his one-night stand and their kid. To rub salt into the wound, I ran into his ex-wife and her new husband a few weeks ago. That woman is in her 50s and she looks better now than she did in high school. I've known her for over 30 years and I was actually blown away by how good she looked. Needed mental help. Refused it. Downward spiraled hard over 4 years. Stress is one hell of a drug. Now divorced, kids don't like them, no one around likes them. Lost a major portion of their business, etc. Around my neck of the woods it's meth. Knew this girl in high school, the most popular and beautiful girl in school. Every boy wanted her, every girl wanted to be her. Just seen her last week on the local news. Methed out, got arrested for trying to sell a dog she stole. Makes me wonder where things went wrong. Her parents were good people, her dad was my varsity football coach. Her mom was a nurse. Her sister turned out fine, she teaches at an elementary school and is my daughter's Sunday school teacher. DUI. No sympathy though, for anyone, but especially those with multiple ones. There are so many ways to get home. Public transportation, taxis, Ubers, etc. If you say, but I live in a small area without any of those things. Okay, then plan for a friend or family member to take you home. If none of those things are possible, then spend the effing night. All this other stuff takes time. With a DUI you can start your day as a regular successful guy with a good life and a bright future and end it with responsibility for killing people and looking at a decade in prison. This will be kind of long but it's definitely a story. So my fiancé's best friend met a girl on Tinder, they started dating right away and moved in 6 months into the relationship. For reference, P is my fiancé's friend, N is the girlfriend. N convinced my fiancé's friend that his parents are toxic, everyone around him is toxic, etc. P basically cuts off his parents, cousins, etc. Me and my fiancé managed to stick around somehow to watch this train wreck unfold. But whenever we all hung out, N found any and every little thing to nitpick on him. One time, she full-on screamed at P because he left a half bowl of cereal in the sink. She called him a dumb butt, belittled him and made an absolute scene. In front of me, P started crying and put his head down. Like a kid that was being scolded. And she just turned to me and said, "Okay, ready for our girls' night." Like girl, WTF. A complete switch up. Another thing to mention, she was in an abusive relationship for 6 years and had gotten preggo with the abuser. Had the kid, but the kid died a few weeks later due to fluid in the lungs? Something along the lines of that. She never sought out help or treatment after everything she went through. Yet she claimed she was a mental health advocate and that you need to treat broken people differently. Yet, this is the same girl that told P. Do yourself a favor, just kill yourself. This girl claims to love and care about him. Fast forward a few years, they got kicked out of their apartment because P and N had animals in the apt, when they were not supposed to. They are living in P's car with like 15 cats. Only N works but makes P drive an hour almost every day to work. She forces him to stay with those cats all day, telling him he can't work and he needs to take care of the animals. Keep in mind he hasn't had contact with his family for over a few years now. He has nobody to call, except for my fiancé, who he occasionally asks if he can borrow money for gas, food, etc. This all happened in the span of a few years OFC. But P was so different back then. He was super cool, fun to hang out with, and you could tell he was just decently happy. Being with this girl messed him up in many ways. She is so abusive, controlling. He said himself that he feels trapped and he doesn't know what to do, how to deal with it. I hope he realizes he deserves better and gets out sooner rather than later. A guy the first knew in high school abused his kid physically. Like the kid almost didn't make it while at the hospital. Now the guy is awaiting trial last I heard. 1. Quit school. 2. Do drugs. Or 3. Get pregnant before 1. Both are financially ready. The 3 things guaranteed to almost doom one to a life of poverty. I've seen this repeatedly in my hometown. I've seen 0 people not end up in relative poverty and generally have sad, pathetic lives. A guy the first know was sleeping with a married woman. He was warned severally to stop, but he did not listen. One day, he was caught pants down by the husband and he paid dearly with his life. Thanks for listening.